Gormagat, I want to go back to the nurse transition to the doctor because I'm really concerned about how medicine and training for medicine is designed, and I want to give you a case in point. I have a degree in biochemistry and MSc in molecular medicine, both from Trinity, and have pursued to be a medical doctor since the age of 14. In 2016, after working full-time in hospital research department and spending every minute of my spare time studying for the GAMSAT exam, I thought things were finally coming good. I was offered a place in the graduate entry route in the University of Limerick, but after applying for a loan from the Bank of Ireland, I was refused on the grounds that I did not have a guarantor that had at least €700 minimum disposable income each month. I was given this news after my induction day in the University of Limerick, and I'm truly torn and heartbroken. And that's an example of the obstacles, the man-made and woman-made obstacles that are put in the way, not only from inside the protectionism from inside the system, but outsiders colluding as well, as in the case of the financial institutions. And that's the challenge we all have. I don't know if you have time to short comment on that after.
One, there's definite merit in it, and I strongly recommend it. The trouble is, I don't have to have the courage to face the electorate. You do. And I wish you all the strength that you can muster in that regard. The other, but it's absolutely right. Just to develop the point further, a significant number of our clinical places in medicine actually are effectively allocated to non-EU students. A very significant number. And that's basically because the universities need to do that. They need the foreign income, okay? They need the income because, in fact, the system is underfunded, okay? So I'm not blaming the universities, but that's a reality, and that might be addressed. On the loan system, okay, they think that's an awful case, isn't it? It's just not right. It's not right. This person wanted to do medicine. The European Stability Fund, okay, is actually lending, okay, for education purposes, all right? A Romanian bank has actually borrowed 5 million, got 5 million from the European Stability Fund for on-lending to students. I think that's a possibility. I think that, and by the way, the rate is 2%. Now, the Romanian bank is charging 11%, and the reason is because of the level of default on such loans. But I actually think this would be possible. That type of system would be possible for the student, okay? The problem is that there would be, there needs to be political acceptances. Student loans is actually it's too hot to handle. It's a hot potato. Every politician has a view on it, and it just in itself, okay, becomes a controversial issue. It's a classic solution to that young lady's dream.
This isn't an individual one. I've raised it with the Taoiseach before in terms, and the Minister as well, because there are a lot of people impacted in the same way through these loans. I don't believe in a loan system as they have in some other countries, and really the solution to a lot of what we're talking about is the immediate publishing of Castle's report and option 1 being selected in that. Let's take it serious, because this is part of the knock-on effect that it has on students.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that, but it's possible. It is possible.
Dr. Ryan.
Thanks, Chair. Just a few very quick points, and thank you again for this engagement today. Very much appreciated. A lot for us to think about as well. Jim and myself will be on something tomorrow now. We'll be talking exactly about the expert group report coming back. That's another report encouraging the Minister to publish as soon as possible so it informs the next phase, because that is the critical discussion for higher education over the next while. I have no doubt the committee will be dealing with that, Chair, and hopefully we'll get a chance to come and talk to you again on that occasion. On the question of contractually remaining afterwards, is it worth considering? Absolutely, it's worth considering. Is it feasible, viable? Let's have that consideration and think about it. Certainly there are areas in society like the Defence Forces, like higher education itself, whereby you are supported to go and study. But equally then you commit for a period of time, and that on a retracting scale, and that seems to me a contract that is worth discussing. On the question that you raised, Deputy Conway-Walsh, I mean, again, heart goes out to an individual. The biomedical route, I mean, I don't know the case obviously personally, but one might have seen an individual who wanted to do medicine originally, may not have succeeded in entry because of what we've just been talking about, went that related route. The biomedic course is a superb course. in itself. And we've seen the impact of that, never more than in the last couple of years. But there is something then about perceptions around different roles. There's a question of, when we went the HPAT route, about trying to get a broader input into medicine, so medicine itself was maybe more reflective of the society. That would seem to be important. There's a conversation there. And equally, I don't know, Chair, whether you're going to meet with the professional bodies, presumably, because they would have a huge input into this sort of particular consideration. It might be worth considering. My final comment, Chair, and thank you again for the indulgence, is I think if we go back to that question of looking at this from a student point of view, the whole debate from a student-centred piece, while we must think of our economy, we must, of course, we're investing public monies in this to develop our people across a whole breadth. I think if we're developing our citizens to be the best they can be, if we're realising the potential out of our citizens, then we're doing a good thing, which itself will be the best for the country and for our system. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. White.
I just want to agree with what Deputy Rose Conway-Walsh mentioned there, just about the student loan scheme. I mean, the learners that we have in Outreach, they can barely afford to be able to go to a PLC course. The idea of having to take out a loan for a college course, effectively, we'd be saying to that 11% of the population, forget it into the future. So I'd be concerned about that. Just in relation to Leaving Cert reform, look, the reality about Leaving Cert reform, it will ultimately come down to what you want the Leaving Cert to do. I mean, I spoke earlier about I think it does at the moment, And if this committee or a group of public representatives can give a policy or a vision for what you think the Leaving Cert has to do in the future, particularly now that we have two departments, which creates a great opportunity, that fracture, then I do believe that government departments will have to come in behind that and the Minister with it. So I'd be hopeful that you're going to find a solution to all our problems.
Mr. Miley.
Thank you, Chairman. Senator, agree wholeheartedly with your comments on the prestige badge that's associated with the Leaving Cert, which I think we have a cultural issue around that that needs to be overcome all around this. I think that argument of reserving places for students as a quid pro quo for them, staying on the workforce in Ireland, is certainly in principle one that should be explored. I suppose as Joe has outlined, there are, private companies do that at the moment. I mean, the banks, some tech companies, they do that, and it's on the basis that they'll pay for your education if you stay with them for a defined period of time. So, I would have thought that should be looked at. I think Deputy Walsh's, Conway-Walsh's question, if I might just broaden that into a wider piece, I think one of the challenges we have, and we have made submissions on this to government in the wider context of funding. Students, I think, are very narrowly defined in the funding model for third level, and it tends to be framed around an 18, 19-year-old coming out of secondary, which of course is the bulk of them. But increasingly, of course, we're seeing a much bigger cohort of mature students and of part-time students coming into the system. And there is not an appropriate funding model around them. And I think the question you raised from that email that you've quoted is very much in this realm, because I think there is no natural mechanism for a student like that to be handled by the system. And I think in the reform of the funding model, one of the points we've raised is that it also needs to, if we're serious about lifelong learning, and this very much is in the lifelong learning space, then we have to ensure that the model caters for that in terms of the cash, as well as it's all very well to have a policy about lifelong learning, but if the cash isn't there to support it and the mechanism for that cash to flow, then it won't happen.